Imagine waking up to find your capital city in flames, your president on the run, and a foreign flag flying over your government buildings. And yet just a few months later, your country walks away claiming it has defended its honor. That is the strange, dramatic story of the War of 1812 between the United States and Great Britain. The year is 1812. The United States is a young nation, not even 40 years old, still trying to prove it belongs on the world stage. Across the Atlantic, Great Britain is a global superpower, locked in a massive struggle against Napoleon in Europe. The oceans are busy with trade, but they've become a dangerous place for American sailors. British warships patrol the waves, stopping American vessels and searching for sailors they claim are British deserters. This practice, called impressment, felt like a direct insult to American independence. Many of these men insisted they were Americans, but they were taken anyway and forced to serve in the British Navy. At the same time, Britain placed heavy restrictions on trade with Europe. American merchants felt trapped. Every ship that sailed risked being stopped, searched, or turned back. To many in the U.S., it felt like their hard-won independence was being quietly erased on the open sea. On the frontier, tensions were also growing. In the Northwest Territories, American settlers and Native American nations clashed over land. Some American leaders believed that British agents in Canada were giving support to Native confederations resisting U.S. expansion, led by the powerful Shawnee leader Tecumseh. Inside the halls of Congress, anger was building. A group of young politicians, known as the War Hawks, spoke passionately about national honor and the need to stand up to Britain. They argued for war, claiming it would be quick and decisive. Some even promised that Canadians would welcome American troops with open arms. Not everyone agreed. In New England, merchants who depended on trade with Britain dreaded a war that could destroy their livelihoods. But the voices calling for action grew louder. In June 1812, President James Madison asked Congress to declare war. The young nation decided to go on the offensive, with a plan to strike north into Canada. But it quickly became clear that the country was not ready. Early American attempts to invade were disorganized and poorly led. In one of the most embarrassing moments, General William Hull surrendered Detroit to a smaller British and native force without a major fight. What was supposed to be an easy victory became a painful lesson. While the land campaigns struggled, a different story unfolded at sea. Britain's navy was huge, but many of its ships were busy fighting Napoleon. This gave the smaller U.S. Navy a chance in one-on-one battles. American warships like the USS Constitution, nicknamed Old Ironsides, defeated British ships in dramatic duels. These victories electrified the public and proved that American ships and sailors could hold their own. Still, the Royal Navy eventually tightened its blockade, crippling American trade. In the Great Lakes region, however, control of the water was key. In 1813, an American commander, Oliver Hazard Perry, built a fleet on Lake Erie and defeated the British in a hard-fought battle. His message after the victory was short and confident: "We have met the enemy and they are ours." With Lake Erie secured, the U.S. regained Detroit and won an important victory at the Battle of the Thames, where Tecumseh was killed. The momentum on the northwestern frontier began to shift, but then, events in Europe changed everything. In 1814, Napoleon was defeated. Britain was now free to turn its full attention to the war in North America. The real storm was about to arrive. In the summer of 1814, British forces marched on the U.S. capital. Washington, D.C. American defenders were outmatched. As British troops entered the city, flames soon rose from the Capitol and the president's mansion. It was a moment of deep humiliation. But the burning of Washington did not break American resistance. Attention quickly shifted to Baltimore, a busy port Britain wanted to silence. In September 1814, British ships began bombarding Fort McHenry, which guarded the harbor. Through a long, tense night, rockets and shells lit up the sky. On a nearby ship, a lawyer named Francis Scott Key watched anxiously. As dawn broke, he saw the American flag was still there, flying over the fort. Baltimore had held. Inspired, Key wrote a poem about the Star-Spangled Banner, which would one day become the United States national anthem. At the same time, another critical battle took place near Plattsburgh, New York. A decisive American naval victory on Lake Champlain stopped a major British invasion from the north. With this, the path to peace became clearer. Both nations were growing tired of the war. Negotiators met in Ghent, Belgium, and in December 1814, they signed a treaty. On paper, it was a return to how things were before. No territory changed hands and the borders went back to their pre-war lines. But there was a twist. News of the treaty had to travel by ship, and that took time. Before the word reached North America, one more major battle was fought, perhaps the most famous of the war. In early January 1815, British forces moved to capture New Orleans. To defend the vital port city, General Andrew Jackson gathered a diverse force of soldiers, militia, frontiersmen, free black volunteers, and even pirates. They dug in and prepared for the assault. When the British attacked, they faced determined defenders behind strong fortifications. The battle was brief but brutal. The British suffered heavy losses and were forced to retreat. News of this stunning victory spread across the United States, making Andrew Jackson a national hero. Only later did the country learn that the peace treaty had already been signed. Technically, the war was over before the battle began. But the victory at New Orleans shaped how many Americans remembered the conflict, not as a near disaster but as a story of triumph. In the years that followed, each side built its own memory of the war. In Britain, it was a minor conflict overshadowed by the Napoleonic Wars. In Canada, it became a defining story of national identity, a successful defense against American invasion. And in the United States, the war became a tale of honor defended. The country had stood up to a mighty empire, endured the burning of its capital, and emerged with a renewed sense of national pride. However, for many Native American nations, the war brought lasting loss. The defeat of Tecumseh's Confederation weakened organized resistance to U.S. expansion, leading to forced land cessions. Politically, the war marked the end of the Federalist Party, which had opposed the conflict and was seen as unpatriotic by the war's end. The nation entered an era of good feelings, a period of relative unity and confidence. The War of 1812 didn't redraw the map, but it reshaped identities, leaving deep footprints on the story of nations. It was a strange, messy conflict, filled with setbacks, surprises, and symbols that still resonate today. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this dive into history, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more stories from the past.